Today we're delighted to have the launch of that collaboration between Jessie and Danny Gill, our festival director, which is The Salmon's Tale. And I'm very happy to welcome our poet Gabriel Fitzmaurice here today, who will launch the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure to be back here in Ennis again. I had the pleasure of launching our own book at one stage. John O'Reilly from Castleisland, the photographer, and I launched Favourite Poem from the South of Ireland here some years ago. And I have read in the Ennis bookshop for Dervin and Fergal on many occasions. And it's always a pleasure to come into a bookshop. You know, a town with a bookshop is a town with a soul. A town without a bookshop, nothing. But anyway, it's great to be here and to celebrate the Salmon as well. Salmon was established in 1981. I think Jessie and Tim and Mike Larran came to Ireland in August 1981, which was exactly the month and the year that Brenda and I got married. So it's 40 years for both of us, Jessie. She established Salmon as an alternative voice in Irish literature. It began as a journal, as you know well, in Galway, out of the Galway Writers Group, which has produced such fantastic poets. I'm going to mention them all, but I just immediately come to my mind is Jessie herself, Joan MacBreen, Ava Burke, New Brown with women poets, and many others. The first book was Gonella by Ava Burke. The second one was Rita Ann Higgins's Goddess on the Merview Bus. If you have them now, they're worth a fortune. But anyway, she broke new ground with women poets, and since then Salmon has published over 600 books of poetry and has become one of the most important publishers in the Irish literary world. I want to quote President Michael D. Higgins, himself a Salmon poet, of course, and he has written of Jessie, and I quote, "All those who appreciate the written or spoken word are greatly indebted to Jessie Lendennie, whose decision in 1981 to make Ireland her new home was a seminal moment in the literary and publishing life of Ireland. Her eclectic reach has made an invaluable contribution to Irish literature." I want to quote a few more people, men and women. Evan Boland, the great Evan Boland, who died, unfortunately, too young, recently, well, just last year. She says, "Salmon Poetry is one of the most innovative, perceptive and important publishing houses in the UK or Ireland." My good friend Vincent O'Toole has to say, "Poetry has been arguably the most important mode of expression for a new generation of Irish women writers. In this light, Salmon's work has been of long and loud importance." Elvis Smith, "Salmon has brought out collections by some of the most stimulating and innovative of writers and has worked particularly hard to develop an international list and to profile Irish poets abroad, for which we owe Jessie and Siobhan a huge debt, because they are the ones abroad." I'm not going to mention other poetry publishers because of fear of libel, but they are not known abroad. Salmon is the one who is known abroad. You go to America, they all know Salmon. And Tess Gallagher, the American poet, has said, "Like the sea-run steelhead salmon that thrashes upstream to its spawning ground, then instead of dying returns to sea, Salmon poetry brings precious cargoes both to Ireland and America in the poetry it publishes." Tess Gallagher. Now, The Salmon's Tale, the book under review. First of all, it's a beautiful book. And what we have here is a limited edition. Limited editions are very valuable. I don't sell books, I buy them. But if I was ever to sell them, I would make millions, because I have limited editions, signed first editions and all the rest. And this is a beautiful first limited edition of the Salmon. The Salmon's Tale by Jessie, and we can't forget Siobhan, who is a brilliant designer, the best book designer in the country by far. And the Salmon poets are hugely indebted to Siobhan as well for the care and attention she gives to a book is beautiful, and it's made more beautiful by beautiful design. So anyway, The Salmon's Tale is Jessie's hymn to the Bredan Fassa. The Bredan Fassa is the salmon of knowledge. Briefly, the Bredan Fassa lived in the River Boyne, and a man called Finnegas, a poet and a wise man, was trying to catch this salmon of knowledge, because he would know everything. He would have the gift of wisdom. And one of his pupils was the young Phil McCool. And Finnegas caught the salmon, and he told Fionn to roast the salmon, but not to touch it under fear of death, under pain of death, because the first person to eat of the salmon, would have the gift of infinite wisdom. And Fionn was a good young boy, and he intended not to eat the salmon, but a blister rose on the back of the salmon, and to break the blister, Fionn put his finger on it, burned his thumb, put it into his mouth, and was the first to taste the salmon of knowledge. So he got the gift of infinite wisdom, which Jessie seems to have tasted as well, because she has the gift of, in her choice of poets and editing and design and publishing, she has certainly the gift of wisdom. It's beautifully designed, as I say, by Siobhan. It's a thing of beauty and a joy forever. It merges Jessie's ode to the salmon alongside a visionary journey of her 40 years at the helm of salmon poetry. It's part history, it's part memoir. It offers Jessie a rare opportunity to highlight her own creative work, because we often forget that Jessie is first and foremost a poet. I know she's a marvellous publisher, but she wouldn't be a publisher were she not a poet. As she said early on in the Galway workshops, we believed in poetry. Jessie believes in poetry. It's a delight, and I digress for a minute. Eve designed the salmon. Eve is her granddaughter? Mm-hmm. She designed the salmon logo on the cover, which was based on a design by Joe Bosk. You know Joe Bosk from the Clifton Arts Festival posters as well, that he always designs. It's full of interesting photographs, lovely paintings. It's a verbal and a visual treat, describing her and the salmon's journey from the Corrib River in the beginning of August 1981, with Jessie, her son Tim, and Michael Allen, her partner. As I said, they believed in poetry. She has taken that belief with her all her life, and now which swims contentedly in the ocean by the cliffs of Moher. Not only is Jessie a brilliant and enlightened publisher and editor, as I said, she's a gifted and beautiful poet. And I'm going to read you one of her poems. This is really, apart from being a memoir and a history, it's a long poem. Now, I know that Jackie Faulkner, the travelling man, famously said to John D. Keane one time, Christgate, he said, poetry is bad enough without it being long. But this is worth reading, and it's interesting the whole way through, so I refute Jackie Faulkner. She has a haiku here. Now, most people, when they write haikus now, forget the tradition of the haiku from Japan. 17 syllables. 5 syllables in the first line, 7 syllables in the second line, 5 syllables in the third line. If it's done effortlessly, it works. If it's forced, it doesn't. And here is Jessie. A silver salmon disrupts the April river, smiles into the rain. She has taken time out from publishing to gift us with the salmon's tale, her ode to joy, her poetic credo, her vision, her ashling of the beauty of the word. And can I say that I'm delighted to call myself a salmon poet. Thank you, Jessie. Now, can I introduce you to the woman of the moment, Jessie Lendennie, who will read from the salmon's tale.
Maybe I don't need to now, Gabriel.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that was lovely. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. And we go back a long way, Gabriel and Salmon. And, well, thank you to Danny, to the Ennis Book Club Festival, to Cora, to Reach, to everyone who's helped Dervla to have this beautiful shop. And, you know, I also want to say thank you to Siobhan Hutson, whose memory book idea this was. And then it coincided with me having worked on a poem about my conversation with the salmon. But I let it go. I let the idea go, sort of just hanging around. You know, when you're writing like you do, you get some ideas and you write them down. Then you think, oh no, that. So what I thought was, oh my God, this is so pretentious, you know. But when Siobhan said, well, when the commission was given, and thank you so much, it focused it. It focused. Siobhan said, okay, well, we do the memory book, and which is a story of salmon. But I thought, oh golly, I'm really I told the salmon poetry, salmon publishing story so many times but the salmon can tell it. I can talk to the salmon. So, okay, you have to read it to find out. Oh no, it's okay. Never mind. There's the story in the beginning of the river boyne and the hazelnuts, because I thought, okay, you have to know what the symbolism is about. And then I have the long poem, The Song of Imogen, which you may have had forced upon you in school, but it shouldn't, as we know, been forced upon you. It quotes, this is when I looked this up, because I'd known this a long time, but then when I was looking there were so many translations, I couldn't believe it. But as Gabriel reminded me, it goes back a very long way, and not even it is assigned to this character Imogen, but we don't know who actually wrote it. But it probably is the first existing poem on the Celtic tradition, and it sounds like it. But it's a chant. It's a beautiful. Well, again, this is Robert Graves from The White Goddess. I am a stag of 7 times. I'm a flood across a plain. I'm a wind on a deep lake. I'm a tear the sun lets fall. I'm a hawk above the cliff. I'm a thorn beneath the nail. I'm a wonder among flowers. I'm a wizard. Who but I sets the cold head aflame with smoke? I'm a spear that roars for blood. I'm a salmon in a pool. I'm a lure from paradise. I'm a hill where poets walk. I'm a boar ruthless and red. I'm a breaker threatening doom. I'm a tide that drags to death. I'm an infant. Who but I peeps from the unknown dome and arch? I am the womb of every holt. I'm the blaze on every hill. I'm the queen of every hive. I'm the shield for every head. I'm the tomb of every hope. Cheerful stuff. No, but that's, as I say. So what I take from that is the whole idea of I am, as in I am conscious. I am of the world. I am of everything in the world. And okay, so this is me now beginning to think about talking to the salmon. I've begun watching clouds. Ireland's sky is full of them, after all. Visitors say the clouds are lower here. Maybe that's why I notice them now when I never did before. Noticing, too, that I've always lived near water, and much of the time under it. Rain is an upside-down sprinkling of sea and shivering of rivers, a mirror of our place, our suspension in time. Now I have to sit down and talk to you, dear water creature, whose name I share. If you have something to say of your world, let me hear it. Would you rather learn what I've done in your name? I would risk a lot in telling you, and you might risk your shimmering movement and fierce eye. I was summoned, said the salmon. Oh, I didn't know you saw it like that. Certainly I didn't, and how could I? Not my mythology, not my culture, not my burden. I had just left the Thames, and everything looked very bright then along the embankment walk. And I've had nothing but the weight of legend for all these long centuries. Now our history is closely bound, and it is our story, however it may digress and shift and tumble. In those days when Galway was sleeping and the Corb River was a lifelong mission for someone like you, there were empty places on every corner and a rattling of windows at night. Under the Spanish arch, people gathered to feel the river fly out to the sea and to die their slow deaths. No, it was only the quiet in the deep water that called them, and the waiting for the change to come, the leap, the rebirth, and it did come, and maybe you can see it like that. But quietly, and not many people paid attention, but yes, it was a city slowly drawing its breath, and we were still exhaling the consciousness of a time of shattering transition. And you came and disturbed my river. Michael and Tim and I, and it was the 1st of August, and it was 1981, and the hottest summer in years, and I thought, it's supposed to be raining. I was thinking of you even then, but didn't know it, because I thought my soul was rooted forever in the arid summer dryness of Arkansas. You weren't there, not even in myth, but you remember it too, the magic, I mean, the Mississippi Delta, and the land that was really sea in the blink of an eye. But here the Corrib became bay, became ocean, and the silver salmon was the key that moved the torrent, that touched the storytellers and the poets. All false human fears that disturb us and strive to take away our silver souls. No, we believed in poetry, that's all. And where did that take you, silly poet? Only to the next step, the human world, yes, but are we not part of your world too? Not using you for our own selfish works. Can I just tell you, without your judgment, we have only respect for your spirit and your life. You barely know me, but tell the story, said the salmon. Do you remember when all along the Corrib the streets were empty, when the storms brought the sea and land, and no one was there to close the doors? When the cladopaths wound round one another and over the bridge into Key Street, and those who were left moved quickly from place to place? You could hear the music, I think, under the water, about your own business. The music never stopped. Never stopped, but I didn't listen to that music, only the rhythm of my own breaths and my easy flow with the river. But you were aware of everything on the land, even the poets fishing on the last bridge at midnight? Ha! I certainly knew those poets. They had more grandiosity than sense, and they would gather under the bridge we would gather under the bridge to laugh at them. But in truth, I could feel their hearts beating for knowledge, and that's the saddest thing. I cannot give you my knowledge, no matter how your poets may want it. I am not you. I'm not a salmon in a pool. Poor Imogen, how he tried. So many poets tried to translate his words, and so many have tried to understand me. He was a poet of battle, of strife, of attainment. He was human or myth or shapeshifter. He was not me. No, I understand that. But you know, with all your years, that the days rush along and the sea ebbs and flows and new poets come and bring their histories forward. New voices, as we say. Did you hear the mermaids poets singing? Have you met a silkie on the beach? I've seen silkies that became land creatures, and I've seen poor poets drowning in Manannán Mac Líre's kingdom. I even heard one reciting. I've heard the mermaids singing each to each. I do not think that they will sing for me. Poor fella, indeed. No mermaid songs for him. That's T.S. Eliot's The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock. How did you hear it? Poets are always lonely and always talk to the sea, especially the sea within their own souls. Yes, that's true, and that's why you're a myth and symbol, sacred to poets. Oh no, never my intention. Shall I continue my story, dear salmon? I don't mean that Galway was without voice, but it was an understated voice, the voice that builds to the shout of revolution. When Michael and I joined the Galway Writers' Workshop, it was just starting, and then the wave came. Do you remember? What I remember is the sound of laughter from the river. One early day, Michael and I walked into the Keys pub, and I said, "Oh, so this is where all the hippies went." And Michael was embarrassed, and there was silence in the pub. Not hippies, indeed, but poets. Poets disguised as hippies. What an idea. You're disdainful, but you know that poets keep society, culture alive. Sometimes you must look carefully for them. They do have disguises at times. Why look at all? They just speak from where they are. Thank you. And it goes on, but not too much. He actually, being omnipotent, being everywhere at the same time, all at once. I am the salmon in the pool. That he kind of comes around, and then again he knows an awful lot more about poetry.
Well, I don't know about the rest of you. We've all been on a journey in the last year and a half, and I think now more than ever we need our poets to help us navigate ourselves through that journey. So I just want to thank Jessie and Siobhan and Salmon Poetry, and also to acknowledge the Arts Council who organised this commissions grant and allowed for us to become friends, I hope. Yeah. And we'll have a lot more poets back with us in Ennis Book Club Festival over the years. I want to thank Dervla and Fargal here in Ennis Bookshop, and just all of you for coming here this afternoon. The book is for sale up at the front, and Jessie will be here for a short while to do some signings if anyone gets a copy. So many thanks.
Thank you.